Again, you're listening to the Ratio Podcast. We've frozen actions with injunctions and seized property with attachment. Now, we're talking about rep living, where the plaintiff says, that specific thing is mine, and I want it back now.
We will wrap up with support pendente lite. If rep living is harsh because it takes property, support pendente lite is urgent because it sustains life.
Let's get into the hunt. Rivera versus Vargas and Enriquez versus Mercantile Insurance are our anchors here.
The ratio rep living is primarily a possessory action because it allows a plaintiff to take property before the court even decides who owns it. It is considered penal in nature.
That's why Rivera versus Vargas is so strict about service.
Exactly. The court teaches that the sheriff must serve the writ, the application, the affidavit, and the bond before or at the time of seizure. If the sheriff just grabs the car and leaves the papers later, the seizure is void. It's a due process violation.
What about the bond?
The ratio, the bond must be double the actual market value of the property. Why? Because the bond isn't just to make sure the property comes back. It's to pay for the damages and cost if the seizure turns out to be wrongful.
Surgis Products versus PCI Leasing adds a fascinating twist on what can be seized.
Right, in Surge Products, the court thought that even if a machine is bolted to the floor, usually real property, if the parties contractually agreed to treat it as a personal property, it can be the subject of a writ of rep living. The binding doctrine here is that parties can be stopped from claiming a machine is immovable if they signed a lease agreement treating it as movable.
Can I rep living something the police have already seized?
David versus Court of Appeals says no.
The issue is this. Property in custodia legis cannot be the subject of rep living. The plaintiff's affidavit expressly states that the property has not been distrained for tax or seized under execution or attachment. Now, from property to people, support pendente lite, the support while the case is pending.
This is the only provisional remedy where the court doesn't just freeze things, it commands a party to pay up immediately for the other's sustenance.
The ratio is this. The right to support is founded on the relationship between the parties and the immediate necessity of the recipient.
The court teaches that unlike attachment, you don't need to prove fraud. You only need to prove the legal relationship, example the birth certificate or marriage contract, the financial capacity of the giver, and the necessity of the receiver. That's the ratio. Procedure is the bridge between a claim and a result. If you don't build the bridge according to the blueprints, you'll never cross. See you at the next episode.